Welcome to Kara's Cures, where we explore the leading edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sundlin. So do you want to make midlife the best part of your life? That's not usually how we think of it, but joining me now is author Dr. Ellen Albertson on her new book, Rock Your Midlife, 7 Steps to Transform Yourself and Make Your Next Chapter Your Best Chapter. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Kara. So great to be here, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yeah. You know, this is a time, especially I would think with women, where they don't usually think of midlife as the best time of their life. And you want to change that.
Absolutely. I feel like midlife as well as menopause really needs some rebranding, which is one of the reasons that I wrote the book.
In fact, I heard you were just looking around at what people say. And when you do a quick Google search, it's not pleasant what people say.
Yeah, well, when you put midlife in Google, what you get is it's conjoined with crisis and the wrong side of 40. And what I'm finding, in my own life and the lives of my followers and my clients is that, yes, it is a time of a tremendous amount of change, both internal and external. But if you follow the 7 steps that I outline in my book, you really can use it as sort of a grounds to really make your second adulthood amazing. So it really can be a powerful time of transformation.
I like how you call it the second adulthood. And it's a lot of people, right? So 2 million women just in our country alone are entering menopause every year, 6 million every year. And then there's the people leading up to that where, in their 40s, where they're balancing kids and they're balancing parents. So you have these 7 steps. Let's start with your first one. You say we need to know yourself.
Right. Knowing yourself is super important, because if you don't know who you are, what you like, what you're amazing at, it's really hard to create a great next chapter, because creating that next chapter is really all about being authentic. So in the book, I really give people lots of tools they can use, lots of journaling techniques to understand what is absolutely amazing and unique about them so they can embrace those things. It's really all about letting go of who you think you're supposed to be and embracing who you are. We're taught so often to please our parents and society and do all of these things for success. But then when we get there, we feel like we've been climbing, up this ladder of success, but it's against the wrong building because we're not being authentic. So you've got to know yourself if you really want to create an amazing second adulthood.
And then you say you also have to love yourself. And I think this goes beyond just saying, oh, I love myself. You actually teach mindfulness-based self-compassion. Talk a little bit more about what you mean for loving yourself.
Yeah, so mindfulness-based self-compassion is really kind of the how of self-love. We hear a lot about self-love, and I think that a lot of women want to do it, but they don't know how to do it. So what self-compassion is about is treating yourself like you would a good friend. So you could take a moment and think about, you've had a friend that's gone through something. How do you treat your friend? What's your posture like, your tone of voice? What do you do? And then think about when you go through something, how do you treat yourself? Now, if you're like most people, you treat your friends much better than you treat yourself. So we're trying to kind of turn this golden rule around and treat ourselves the way we would a good friend. And the cool thing about self-compassion is it's a muscle. It's something that anybody can learn, anybody can grow. And personally, I can tell you through my own life, it will completely transform your life, because when you love yourself, when you practice self-compassion, you stop doing those things that insult your soul and you do more of those things that really bring you joy in your life.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that for folks who are listening here in Connecticut, we have a wonderful place called the Copper Beach Institute. They actually teach an 8-week course on mindfulness-based self-compassion. So, because this is more than just looking in the mirror, although that might be one step, looking in the mirror and saying something nice to yourself. But there's actually a practice, certain types of meditation, things you can do, journaling, to really, as you said, build that muscle, right?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with being kind to yourself rather than critical. So starting with that self-talk. Then there's common humanity, knowing that we are all imperfect beings. We all mess up, we all make mistakes, and then you don't feel so alone. And when things happen that are difficult, you realize it's just normal. And the last facet of it is really mindfulness, as you kind of just mentioned, of being aware when you are struggling, when you are suffering. So bringing that mindfulness in, and that also helps turn off some of this rumination, some of this negative self-talk. So those are kind of the 3 components. And there's so many ways that you can learn how to practice self-compassion.
And it's true that if we're not nice to ourselves, it's hard for us to be what we want to give to others, right? It usually starts within.
Yes, absolutely. It really is true when you look at the research that self-compassion actually predicts more compassion for others. So when we love ourselves more, we have more love for other people. I think at midlife, a lot of women feel really guilty when they put themselves first. And honestly, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you are drained, if you're not doing the self-care, if you're not loving yourself, you're not going to have energy for everyone else, particularly this time of year. So it's super important to take some time out every single day to be there for yourself, to do those things that really energize you and light you up.
And that's point 3, energize yourself. How do we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a dietitian for almost 30 years. So, of course, it starts with a healthy diet, and you don't have to go crazy. It's not complicated. It's really eat more plants. Don't eat anything your grandmother would have eaten. So don't eat a lot of processed foods, and eat until you are satisfied rather than stuffed. It's about moving your body every day. Again, you don't have to do CrossFit. You don't have to lift weights. You can if you like to do that, but you want to move your body for, about 30 minutes every day. It's also really important to manage your stress, because the cortisol can really undermine your health. It can create inflammation. So it's important to learn healthy ways to manage the stress. It's also really important to make sure that you're getting enough rest and enough sleep, which, is an issue with women at midlife, particularly if they're going through menopause. You might want to talk to your physician and see where your hormones are at, because that can really cause some interruptions in your sleep, which can drain your energy. So it's both having energy during midlife as well as creating a healthy lifestyle, because if you want that second chapter to be amazing, you have to be healthy. You have to have the energy to do all of those things that you have wanted to do in your life.
I just want to bring you back to that, because about checking with your doctor for women, because perimenopause can start, anywhere from 8-10 years before. And if you're starting to notice that you're not sleeping as well, or things like that, what do you recommend, or what help is there for that? Because I know some women who really do struggle to sleep at night.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a MD, but in my practice, I usually refer people. And so just going to a OBGYN or a naturopath who is open, perhaps looking into hormone replacement therapy. I think people are revisiting that, because the sleep is usually a problem with hormone fluctuation. So if you get the hormones under control, that can really help. But there's a lot of things that I talk about in the book in terms of sleep hygiene. So, making sure not to drink caffeine and alcohol late in the day, not having a heavy meal late in the day, turning off your screens for about an hour before bedtime, and creating, a bedroom that is quiet, that is cool, that is dark. And just really, I think the hardest thing for people, I think at midlife, and, especially if you're busy, you've got a job, you've got kids, is really prioritizing sleep time. So making sure, that lights are out by 11 or so, and doing that consistently over time. But if you're struggling with hormones, you think that's the issue, I would highly recommend speaking with your doctor, getting checked and seeing if there's something that can be done either through some type of supplementation or even hormone replacement therapy, so you can get your hormones back on track and you can feel better.
Okay. And your 4th step is reprogram your brain. What do you mean by that?
So your brain is actually plastic. So there's something called neuroplasticity. Scientists used to think that your brain stopped growing when we hit, adulthood, hit 18 or so. But now we know that your brain grows and changes throughout your lifetime. So there are lots of things that you can do, such as mindfulness practices. Actually getting exercise is super healthy for your brain. Again, eating a diet that's high in plant foods, and also working on your positive self-talk, positive mindset. So we have 60,000 thoughts every day. Some are positive, some are neutral, some are negative. You can't stop the negative ones, but you can really try to reframe things when difficulties happen. Ask yourself, how am I learning? How am I growing? And really work on having more positive thoughts than negative ones. You can really transform your brain so that you are happier and you're clearer and more focused.
And the next thing you say, you need to empower yourself. That's a broad statement. What do you mean specifically?
So empowerment is really about finding power from within. So often we're looking for power from without. We're looking for things, for people to make us feel okay, to make us feel safe. But it's really about that first step of authenticity, knowing yourself, trusting yourself, feeling confident, knowing those things that light you up in your life, that bring you joy, that bring you meaning. And then also a little bit of what's called the law of attraction. So it's about being authentic. And then it's about attracting those things in your life which are really in your best interest. So when you're feeling good about yourself, you're loving yourself, and you're being authentic, you start to really attract people and opportunities that really will help you to grow and glow and move into this beautiful second adulthood.
I like how we're calling it the second adulthood. That sounds much nicer than, it used to be that's it, over the hill. It's a second adulthood, so you get a redo. And that's point 6, actually. You say rehab your relationships. By the time you've reached midlife, you might have some strains with your parents or your husband, or maybe you've got people in your life that you kind of wish weren't in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. This step is super important because what happens is as you start to transform, you create this great second adulthood. What happens is people think you're still the caterpillar, right? You've become the butterfly. You've grown these wings. You're colorful. You're feeling good about yourself. You're literally flying, soaring. But the people in your life might still think that you're the caterpillar because in their brain, they're like, this is the way you've always been. And so in this step, what I help people do is, first of all, stop being the people pleaser. I think a lot of women, myself included, we grew up believing that we had to please everyone. I would literally think about, what am I going to do? A career is going to please, my parents, my peers, society. And so we have to stop that people pleasing, stop being that good girl. That's number one. Number 2 is we actually have to create a personal bill of rights, thinking about what you stand for, what you want in your life. I deserve to be heard. I deserve to take care of my body. I deserve to be treated respectfully. So actually creating a bill of rights. And when somebody crosses that bill, there are things that you can actually do, measures you can take when people do that. And the last thing is learning something called nonviolent communication, which is a technique that was formulated by Marshall Rosenberg, which will really help you to communicate and get your needs met.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. I think, people, it's not something that we're often taught, conflict resolution. They might teach it in settings at work but in our family relationships, people might, not always have the best communication skills. So what do you mean by that?
So it's actually a 4-step process of getting your needs met. So often, we wait until we explode, and that usually puts the other person on the defense and we don't get what it is that we want. So the 4-step process is first observing. So let's just say your kid, comes in, leaves his or her backpack right in the middle of the living room every day, and it kind of gets under your skin. So you observe, hey, I've noticed you come in and you leave your backpack in the middle of the living room. That's step 1. Step 2, you state how it makes me feel. So it makes me feel like you don't care about me, that you're not helping out around the house. I really feel like, it's creating problems in our relationship. So state how you're feeling. Number 3 is what your needs are. I need you to respect our, communal space. I need you to respect me as your mom. And I need you to help out around here. And then the 4th step is making a request. I'm requesting that when you come in, instead of dumping your stuff right in the middle of the living room, you take it into your room. So it's just a really easy process, and truly it works. I've had teenagers, I've had to have spouse, parents, coworkers, and it's a really beautiful way of working together with other people so your needs are met, and it's great for everybody.
Well, and these are all good skills because the research has shown as many as 1 in 8 women between the ages of 40 and 59 have depression. That's according to the CDC. And sometimes there's this U-shaped happiness curve. So you want us to not have the dip.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually research across 132 countries that shows that happiness dips predictably. That's the bad news. The good news is you can make the most of your upswing. And, it dips for a couple of reasons. A lot of the changes we've talked about, the external changes with parents getting older and kids, we're kind of in that sandwich generation, or you might be facing empty nests, which is really hard. We're questioning our life trajectory. We're realizing that there is more time behind us than in front of us. We're not feeling as joyful as we once did. So that's the bad news. But the good news is that, through these techniques that I've talked about today, things like self-compassion, mindfulness, starting to make positive changes, reprioritizing what's important to you, that can also really help. And also finding community and friends is super important. I find it midlife, it can get a little difficult, particularly if, your kids have grown up and you are looking for friends and community, but you've got to prioritize that because there's so much growth and happiness that comes from connecting with other people. Gratitude can also really help, as well as volunteering, finding ways to be kind. So yes, there is a dip, but the good news is that it starts to come up. And then, around in our sort of late 50s, early 60s, we start to feel really, really good again.
But that's a long time in between. So you want people to take their midlife really as their second adulthood. And you think by incorporating some of the steps you have in your book, we can really skip that dip in happiness and really make a life maybe even better than you imagined.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wrote the book because women at midlife feel really, really stuck. They don't know what to do. And so anybody can approach the book and enter any of the 7 steps. And that alone will really be transformative. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. A lot of people think, I have to have a crisis and make a lot of changes, but really small changes really make a big difference. So you're absolutely right, Kara. You don't have to go through that dip. You can start really changing your trajectory, looking at the changes you want to make, loving yourself more, getting to know yourself, taking care of your body, working on your relationships, and empowering yourself. And then actually the last step we didn't talk about is also enlightening yourself. So having some kind of spiritual connection, finding meaning, finding purpose, perhaps creating a spiritual practice, spending time in nature, all of these things will really help you to get unstuck and really create an amazing next chapter.
So we don't have to be crabby.
But if we are crabby, then it's that self-compassion piece, right? So
right.
This has been a tough 20 months. So part of it is, rather than pushing those feelings away, or a lot of people, are turning to that glass of wine and that, the cheese, the crackers, the food, because they want to feel better. Take a moment, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And what is it that I really need to feel better? And that alone will start to open you up and give you opportunities to connect with yourself and have more joy and feel less stuck in your life.
Well, once again, the book is Rock Your Midlife, and it's got 7 steps to transform. So thank you so much for sharing your 7 steps, because we all want to make the next chapter the best chapter. It's the only chapter left. So whatever chapter you have, you want it to be the best one, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, and I want to let everyone know they can learn more about you and your steps and your book at themidlifewhisperer.com. So thank you so much, Dr. Ellen. And you can watch more Kara's Cures right here on the WFSB streaming news app. We love to explore the cutting edge of wellness, so check it out here. I also share on social media, so follow me there at Kara Sundlin. Have a great day.